Hey guys, welcome to my VSDC Free Video Editor tutorial for beginners. I will show you everything you need to know to edit your videos from start to finish, including importing your footage, cutting your videos, applying effects and transitions, and applying some movement to objects. When you first open up VSDC Free Video Editor, you will see a screen that looks like this. And here you will see the invitation to upgrade to the Pro solution. You don't have to do this because this video today is about the free version. You don't need to upgrade, so just click the X to close this upgrade offer. The free version of VSDC does include a couple of other add-ons such as video capture and screen capture, but we're not going to cover those today. We're going to cover editing the video. So to open a new project, click blank project. You can choose the project settings manually and you can fill out all of these one by one, or you can use some of the presets. So here we will focus on creating videos for YouTube. So just go for YouTube, which will automatically set the correct resolution for you. In terms of the frame rate, you've got all of these standard options. We will go with 30 FPS for this tutorial. Click finish to create your project. VSDC Video Editor has a really nice clean layout and it's quite standard. At the top, we've got the ribbon with the various options. The first tab is to manage projects. Second one is to work with your scenes. Edit is to edit the elements in your footage. View is to show and hide various additional options such as the timeline window, resources window, properties window, object tools, and so on. So if you can't find something in your interface, most likely you'll be able to find it if you go into the view ribbon at the top. Next one is editor. This is where we're probably going to be doing most of our work. Next menu section is export projects. So this is where we will go to export the finished video. When we're in the export project menu, the conversion submenu gets activated. This is to convert some clips from one format to the other. Next menu ribbon is tools. This is where you can go to use voice recorder, screen capture, video converter, and other tools that are included in your VSDC free package. And the last ribbon is activation. So this is if you want to upgrade to the Pro version. We're not going to focus on that today because today we're using just the free version of VSDC Video Editor.
Wow.
Next, I'll show you how to import your footage into VSDC Free Video Editor. Go into this Add Video option and that will bring up the import menu. If you can't see this option for any reason, then go to the View ribbon at the top and toggle the object tools to bring it up. So to import your footage, click on the Add Video button and choose the clips that you'd like to import. I'm going to import this MP4 file. By the way, it is a huge file, 47.8 gigabyte, and VSDC Free Video Editor works really well with large files. Here you can choose where to insert it, whether you want it to be in the cursor position or from the start of the scene or end of the scene. We want ours to be right at the start of this scene. So I'm going to choose from start of the scene and going to click OK. This will add our file. And here we can scroll through the file at the bottom. You can see the preview of the footage at the top. And if I scroll through using this cursor, you can see how the footage changes. This clip will now be visible in the resources view. So we can go into view and click resources window, and that will have a list of all of the clips that we have added to date. The second way to add clips is directly to drag and drop them into the resources window. So if I want to add some B-roll, I can just drag and drop it from here into the resources window, and that will add it as a resource without inserting it into the timeline. The third way to add the clips is by drag and dropping them directly into the timeline. So I can just pick up this clip, hold it, and then drop it over into my timeline. And if it's ended up in the layer where I didn't want it to be, I can move the layers around as well. So if this is going to be my B-roll, I want it to be on top of my camera footage, I can just pick this layer up and I can move this to be above. And now you can see that because this layer is on top of my camera footage, I can't actually see myself underneath this screen footage. VSDC supports multi-layer editing, so you can include more than one layer in your footage, just like this. You can change the size of each of them, which we'll go through in a bit more detail in the next step. For now, let's just expand this layer to fill the whole screen. If you wanted to add some music, you can also drop them straight into the resources window or straight into a timeline. For now, let's delete this layer 5 with the B-roll from our timeline, and let's just work with this layer for now. Basic editing of the footage in VSDC Free Video Editor is actually really well and logically organized. If you want to change the size of the preview of the layers, you can drag this border over here to make the preview of your video a little bit larger and easier to see. You can drag this cursor to preview the position, to preview the portion of the video in which your cursor is. If you want to zoom into the timeline, you can use these plus and buttons signs, and that will zoom in and out on this timeline. You can also drag this cursor and that zoom in to the position of your cursor. Now that we've zoomed in, we can see our timeline and our clip preview in a lot more detail. And for example, let's say I want to cut out everything before I start actually speaking in this clip. First thing I'll need to do is to find the exact location where I start speaking. So I can just either click play over here, or I can click the space bar and wait to see the exact position where I start talking. All right, so I can now see that I started talking over here. So let's just zoom in all the way so that we've got a lot more control. And now I found this location, so it's just right here. So if I click spacebar now, that's the exact location where I want to make my cut so that I can remove all of the section that's before this. Let's go to the editor ribbon at the top and then choose this blade. If you see that this area is kind of not enabled like this, it doesn't have the color, it means that perhaps your clip is not selected. So just click on the clip and now you can see that you can actually click this option, split into parts. You can also use the shortcut Control and K together to split this video clip, and the split will happen exactly where the position of the cursor is. So let's press Ctrl K. Now you'll be able to see that the clip is split into two parts, and if I click off it, then I can select the left part individually and the right part individually. Now I want to remove everything that comes before the cursor, so let's just select this part. Let's now zoom out on the timeline and I will show you what deleting this clip will do. If I select this part that we've split off and I press delete, that will delete it from the timeline. But we've now got this gap from the start of our project. We've got silence and just darkness in the clip. And then our actual footage will now start from this point onwards. So you can actually grab and drag this to the very start to make sure that your video clip now actually starts with me speaking. So we're at the very start. Let's click preview or spacebar. And we can now see that the video starts at the right point in time, just as I start talking. There are a couple of other ways that you can edit your footage. So if I decide that I don't want this bit at the very end and I want to get rid of it, I can just position my cursor over here. And after that, I can, let's just make sure that this clip is selected. After this, I can go into this menu and just choose trim end. So this will just get rid of this bit at the very end from where the cursor is onwards to the end of the clip. And if I wanted to just get rid of a certain section of the video, I can do this by using the selection. So if I position my selection from this part to this part, I can choose the option to cut out content, and that will just delete everything that is under that selection like this. Lastly, you can also use these arrow controls to adjust the start and end of your clip. So you can just click and drag, and this will also work to trim your clip. So if I wanted to cut out the last few minutes of it, I could just do it like that over here by just dragging the end of this clip. If I wanted to add some B-roll now, I can just click it and drag and position it where I want. Let's say I drag and drop it over here just above layer 3. Now, as you can see, this B-roll is very long. It's about 42 minutes long. So we want to make a cut. Let's say I want to just use the portion of the B-roll that starts around here. So I can go into the editor and then choose the trim start option, and that will now trim out everything that was before this point onwards. And let's say I just want to use this portion from here to here. So I can then trim the end of it like this. And now I've just got this portion of B-roll that is shorter, and that's exactly what I want to use. So let's just reposition this over here. We can zoom in and find the perfect spot where I want it to be. So let's say I just play this back and decide that I want my B-roll to start exactly over here. So I can just drag it so that it snaps to the cursor. We can then adjust the start and end position. So if I want it to be even shorter, I can adjust it to cover just this area. So let's preview what we have done. So basically now I'm speaking and then the B-roll comes and then it goes for a few seconds, and then at the end of these B-roll, it will cut back to me. So the way that the layers are organized, the layers that are higher up will be visible first, and then the layer underneath will become visible. So if I wanted this layer to just take up a part of the screen, I can change the size of it. So I can make sure that the right layer is selected and then simply use these drag controls to change the dimensions of my B-roll. So if I just wanted to show it, let's say here in the corner, I could do it like this. And this way, if I play this back, it will show in the part of the screen without actually taking up the whole screen. You can inspect the dimensions and various other characteristics of each of the clips using the properties window view. Just make sure that you've got the right clip selected and then go and enable properties window. And if you want it set to a particular size, you can change them directly in the properties window. So if I want the width to be exactly 1000 pixels, I can do that, press enter, and you can see that now the width has changed. And now this clip is exactly 1000 pixels wide. Next, I'm going to to show you how to add some titles. So let's say I want to add a title here at the start of my video. I can use this control to insert some text. Let's choose text, and then we'll need to decide exactly where it appears. So I want it to appear at the cursor position. Let's click OK, and I can now choose exactly where I want it to appear. So let's just drag and drop this box over here in the bottom left like this. You can see we've now got a new layer called text1 that has appeared over here, and I can now just start typing. So I can start typing out my name, and I can see I don't have enough room over here. So let's just open the editor interface, and that will give us these options to work with the text. So I want the text size to be a little bit smaller. So right now we've got 60 points. Perhaps I want to start with 24. That looks a little bit too small. Let's go with 36. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's just say Greg Kononenko, caffeinated blogger. It's not quite fitting in, but I can use these property windows on the right hand side to adjust the width a little bit. And so let's set it to 580. Okay, we've now got enough room. I just want it positioned a little bit off my shirt. So for this, you can change the coordinates. Right now, left is 57. Let's set that to 25. And that's now moved over to the left exactly where we want it to be. We can change the font as well to anything that's installed on your computer right now. Perhaps I'll change mine to Lighto Black, like this, and we can now change the colors. Let's highlight this caffeinated blogger and then go into text color, and you can choose any color you want. You can just go into this color wheel and set it to, let's say, light blue like this. Let's see how this looks. Let's say I'm happy with this for the purposes of this video. So we can now see that this text layer is appearing throughout the whole video. And if we just wanted it to be at the very start, let's say for 5 seconds and then disappear, we can adjust this length in a couple of different ways. First is you can just drag, just like any other layer, you can drag it and adjust it to be any length that you want. And in this case, at 4 seconds, this will now disappear. The second way to adjust the length of your layers is through the properties window. So if you want to be very precise, you can actually just choose the duration of this, and we can set it to be 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0.5 seconds, and 0.0 frames. Press enter, and this will make it exactly 5 seconds long. Now let's talk about how to add an effect to this text, just to have a bit of a transition. Let's say we want it to fade in. For this, make sure that the right layer is selected, go into video effects, and here you can choose any of these effects, but for now we will work with transitions, and I'm going to use fade effects like this. And here you can control the duration and the start of the effect. We want it to apply from the start of the scene, and you will see that the duration is already set to 1 second. That's how long the fade duration lasts. You can change it if you want, but 1 second is I'm happy with that. Let's just click OK. You will see the timeline area has now zoomed in to look at the text layer in detail. We can just go back out to scene 0 to see where the text is in relation to the rest of the timeline. And let's see what actually happens. So we're at the very start. Let's click play. And you see how this fades in. Now, let's say if I wanted it also to fade out, because right now it just disappears. If I wanted it to fade out, I could do that as well. So again, let's make sure that text 1 is selected. Let's go to video effects, transitions, and fade FX. And now I want it to be to the end of the scene. So this will now apply to the 5 seconds mark, which is the length of our scene, and it will last exactly 1 second. So it'll start at 1 second before, at 4 seconds, and end at 5 seconds. Let's hit OK. And now let's go back to scene 0 and let's preview again what happens. So now we've got the fade in, and now at 4 seconds, it will start to fade out. You can apply these effects to any of the footage. Let's say if you wanted this B-roll footage to not just appear abruptly, but fade in or have other effects or transitions, you can do exactly the same thing. Make sure it's selected, then go to video effects, transitions, and let's say we want it to wipe from the start of the scene for 1 second, click OK. Go back out, and let's now see what happens when this B-roll appears. So see how now it wipes instead of just appearing abruptly. Next, I'm going to show you how to change the angle just to break up some of the footage. It's a common trick that many people, especially on YouTube, use. Just looking at the person is quite monotonous. If you're only looking at a person like this and nothing is changing, then the viewer may get bored. So a common solution to this is to change up the angle, and the best way to do this is choose where the cut will be made, split the video into parts, make sure the clip is selected, then use this Ctrl K or click this button to split it into parts, and then you can select this part and split it here as well, and then we just can change the angle to break up the monotony.
Yes, please.
So make sure that just this little clip is selected, and we can adjust the size of just this clip by dragging the sides of the clip like this. Okay, and what will now happen, let me just zoom in a little bit. You will see what we have done and what we have achieved by doing this. We've got me speaking that looks like this, and then there's going to be a slight change of the angle. See how now the angle will change slightly. At the end of this part, it will just cut back out to the normal standard camera angle like this. This change of angle can help you break up the monotony of the videos. I will now show you how to add a moving object in VSDC Free Video Editor. So let's drag and drop an object such as an arrow onto our layers. So we've got an arrow here. I'll make sure that arrow is selected, and I will now change the size of it to be a little bit smaller. And let's say I want this arrow to move on the screen from this position to the right and point to the footage that's about to appear. For this, double click on the arrow object in the timeline. We're now inside the editing interface specific to the image arrow, and click the movement button. You will now see these options, and these options will help you control the movement of the object. And the easiest way that I found is to use cursor position. Now, let me just cancel out of this and I'll go back to our overall scene view. We'll want the arrow to fly from here to over here just as the B-roll appears, and stop at the point where the B-roll appears. So that's from around 4.4 seconds to about 7.5 seconds. So in about 3 seconds, it needs to fly from over this position to over this position. Now this is what we're trying to animate. And the easiest way that I found to do this is to position your cursor in the timeline exactly where you want the movement to stop. So in our case, it's exactly where this B-roll appears on the screen. So now once again, let's just click on the arrow to open up the options that are specific to the arrow, click movement, and we can now say point position in the timeline. So this is going to be the end position, the cursor position, which were placed at about 7.4 seconds. Cursor position, click OK. And very importantly, we now want to click exactly where we want this arrow to get to. So from over here, we want it to go over here. So I'm just going to left click like this, and this has created the movement path for it. So this is now all done. If you missed any of the bits that we've just gone through, please rewind and rewatch them again. I'm going to go to scene 0 and you will see what has now happened. So let's click play, and now the arrow will appear, and the arrow is now flying, and it will stop exactly in this area over here. Okay, and it will just stay there. Now, because this arrow 1 clip is stretched out all the way, we might want to drag it back so that it disappears at the same time when this B-roll disappears, so they will both disappear off the screen at the same time. Next, let's add some music. For that, we can go into our resources window, which is basically our bin with all of the media that we added in earlier stages of our tutorial. And we can now add this background music. So let's just drag and drop it. If it doesn't align exactly with where you want it to start, you can just slide it to the start of the timeline. Let's just see how it now sounds all together. The music is probably going to be too loud. It's definitely too loud. It drowns out the sound of the voice. So you can change the volume of it. To adjust the volume, just click on your music clip, and then at the top under view, go and open up the properties window, and this is where you can change the audio volume. As a rule of thumb, background music sweet spot seems to be around -32 or -30, but just play around with it, preview it, preferably in the headphones, and get the volume just right so that the background music does not overtake the voice. Next, let's talk about adjusting the color of your footage. So if you select all of your video footage and go to view and then open the basic effects panel, you will be able to do some basic color grading of your footage. Here you've got all of the controls such as brightness, contrast, gamma, etc. Just close any of the other windows you might have open to give yourself a bit more space to work with. And now we can change the brightness if we want to make it a little bit brighter or a little bit darker. If you think you want more or less contrast, you can change that from over here as well. Now this is way too much, so let's just drop it back to about 1. If you want more reds, greens, or blues in your footage, you can do that from over here as well. You can change the temperature to be a little bit cooler like this. So perhaps my image was a little bit too yellow before. I'm just gonna make it a little bit cooler and a little bit more natural looking. And vice versa, if your image is too blue, then you can change the temperature to be a little bit warmer. Now this is is probably a little bit too much. I actually quite like my footage probably over here. A little bit of sharpen also sometimes makes your footage look better, so just play around with it and just check if adding the sharpen effect actually improves your image or not. There are some more advanced effects such as the hue saturation curves, so you can really have a lot of very fine control over the color profile of your footage. Once you've laid out your whole video, it's a good idea to preview it. You can actually preview it in a full screen. If you click this button over here, this will open up the full size preview, which you can maximize, play it and see how everything looks just to make sure that your edit is right. Double click to close this, click X to close the window. In our example, our music track is too long, so let's just cut it back to end exactly where the video ends, and we're now ready to export. For that, use this ribbon at the top, export project. You can choose any of these presets. You've already got quite a lot of options. So media device, we can leave it as web if it's a YouTube video. And for preset output video format, let's go for YouTube. If you know that your video is going to be used in some other way, you can change it to anything that you want. And for finer control, you can change manually the profiles of the encoding, the exact quality setting, and there are some more, even more advanced settings here at the bottom. For usual day-to-day use, just the presets are enough. Once you're happy with everything, click export project. Don't worry about the prompt to upgrade. Let's just click continue. Your video is now exporting and it will be exported to the output file location, which is just marked over here. And the progress of your export can be monitored in the top left. Well, now you guys know how to edit your videos in the VSDC Free Video Editor. If you want to learn how to convert your video editing skills into passive income, then check my free training. The link is in the description below. It will show you exactly what I personally do to convert my fairly basic video editing skills into passive income like this and like this. Even if your video editing skills right now are total zero, this video editing guide will show you how to get those video editing skills and start converting them into passive income.
A true poet.
If you guys learned something new in today's video, then I'd really super appreciate it if you could please scroll below the video, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and enable all notifications for the YouTube algorithm. If you want to take your video editing skills to the next level, then check out one of these two videos that I'm going to link here on the screen. They will show you more ways to edit your videos simply and easily using some other solutions. Thank you so much for watching, guys. My name is Greg Kononenko, the Caffeinator blogger, and I'll see you in the next video.